The memorial service was held 3 days after my father's death inside the grand ballroom of the mansion he had spent 20 years building. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling. Expensive flowers covered every corner of the room. Hundreds of guests filled the seats, including business partners, politicians, lawyers, and distant relatives who suddenly appeared the moment they heard about his death. My younger brother Ethan sat beside me in silence. His eyes were red from crying. Mine probably looked the same. We hadn't slept much since Dad died. Every time I closed my eyes, I kept thinking about all the unanswered messages I'd sent him during his final weeks. I kept wondering if he had ever seen them. I kept wondering whether he knew I was trying to reach him. At the front of the room stood Victoria, my stepmother. She wore an expensive black dress and looked more like a CEO preparing for a business presentation than a grieving widow. As guests approached her with condolences, she accepted them with a calm smile that felt completely out of place. When the memorial speeches ended, people gathered around, talking quietly. That's when Victoria raised a glass and called for everyone's attention. The room became silent. Every eye turned toward her. She cleared her throat and smiled. "Before everyone leaves, I'd like to thank all of you for supporting our family during this difficult time." Several people nodded sympathetically. Then her smile widened. Richard was an extraordinary man. He built an empire worth over $80 million, and as his wife, I intend to continue his legacy. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Victoria seemed to enjoy the attention. Thankfully, Richard ensured everything would remain under my control. His estate, the mansion, the company, everything. Ethan stiffened beside me. My stomach tightened. Something felt wrong. Dad had always promised he would provide for all of us. He had repeated that promise countless times. Yet Victoria spoke as if she had inherited absolutely everything. A few relatives exchanged surprised looks. Then Victoria looked directly at Ethan and me. The smile on her face changed. It wasn't a grieving widow's smile anymore. It was a victorious smile, the kind someone wears after winning a competition. "As for Richard's sons," she continued, "they are adults now. It's time they learned to stand on their own." The room fell silent again. I could feel dozens of eyes turning toward us. Ethan looked confused. Then Victoria delivered the sentence that shocked everyone. "The mansion is now my property, and I expect both of them to move out immediately." Gasps echoed through the ballroom. Even some of Dad's business partners looked uncomfortable. Ethan stared at her in disbelief. "What?" he asked quietly. Victoria crossed her arms. "You heard me." Ethan stood up. "This is our home." "Not anymore," Victoria replied coldly. "Legally, it belongs to me now." Several relatives began whispering. One of my uncles stepped forward. "Victoria, maybe this isn't the appropriate time." "This is exactly the appropriate time," she interrupted. "The matter has been decided." Ethan's face turned pale. He looked at me, expecting me to argue. Honestly, everyone in the room expected me to argue. Instead, I remained seated. Victoria noticed immediately. Her eyes narrowed. She had spent years trying to provoke me. She wanted a scene. She wanted me to lose my temper in front of everyone. But I simply stood up and adjusted my jacket. "If that's what you want," I said calmly. Confusion spread across her face. "You're not going to fight this?" she asked. "No." The answer seemed to disappoint her. "Good," she replied. "Then collect your belongings by tomorrow afternoon." Ethan couldn't believe what he was hearing. As we walked toward the exit, he grabbed my arm. "How can you just let her do this?" he whispered. "Because she's making a mistake." "A mistake? She just stole everything Dad built." I glanced back toward Victoria. She was laughing with several guests, looking completely confident. "Trust me," I said. "She doesn't know what she's celebrating." Ethan looked even more confused. The truth was, there was something Victoria didn't know. Something Dad had told me nearly a year earlier. It happened during a fishing trip just after his 63rd birthday. We sat alone on a lake while the sun disappeared behind the trees. Out of nowhere, Dad began talking about the future. He told me that wealth changes people. He told me that greed destroys families faster than poverty ever could. Then he asked me a strange question. If something happened to me tomorrow, who do you think would care more about the family than the money? I answered immediately. Ethan. Dad smiled. You're right. Then he became serious. There may come a day when people reveal their true character after I'm gone. When that happens, don't react emotionally. Let them show everyone exactly who they are. At the time, I didn't understand what he meant. Now I did. After leaving the memorial, Ethan and I returned to the mansion. Security guards were already standing near the entrance. Victoria had apparently hired them that same day. One of them handed me an envelope. Inside was an official notice ordering us to vacate the property. Ethan laughed bitterly. She didn't waste any time. I folded the paper calmly. No, she didn't. That evening, while packing our belongings, Ethan kept asking questions. Are we seriously leaving? Yes. Without fighting? Yes. Why? I looked at the old wooden desk in Dad's study, the same desk where he had spent thousands of hours building his company. Slowly, I opened one of the drawers. Hidden beneath a stack of papers was a small metal key. The moment I saw it, I smiled. Ethan noticed immediately. What is that? I closed my hand around the key. The reason Victoria should be very nervous right now. Ethan stared at me. What are you talking about? I looked toward the window where the lights of the mansion glowed in the darkness. Somewhere inside those walls, Victoria was probably celebrating her victory. She probably believed she had won. She probably believed Dad had left her everything. But Dad was smarter than anyone gave him credit for, especially Victoria. And hidden behind a locked door in his downtown office was a document she had never seen. A document containing a secret clause that would change everything. The moment that document became public, Victoria's celebration would become the biggest mistake of her life. 3 days later, the attorneys called an emergency meeting. Victoria arrived looking confident as ever. She walked into the conference room wearing an expensive designer suit and carrying herself like the new owner of an empire. Several executives sat around the table, along with family members and legal representatives. The moment she entered, she smiled and took the seat at the head of the table. Let's get this over with, she said confidently. I have several important decisions to make regarding the company. One of Dad's senior attorneys adjusted his glasses and opened a thick folder. Actually, Mrs. Victoria, before any decisions can be made, we need to discuss a specific clause within Mr. Richards' estate plan. Her smile faded slightly. What clause? The attorney slid a document across the table. This clause. Victoria glanced at it casually at first. Then she started reading. Her expression changed instantly. The confidence disappeared. The color drained from her face. She read the page again. Then a third time. This isn't possible, she whispered. The attorney remained calm. It is entirely possible. Mr. Richard personally created this provision several years ago. Victoria looked around the room. There must be some mistake. There is no mistake, another attorney replied. According to the estate documents, your inheritance was conditional. Conditional? She asked. Yes. You were required to continue supporting Mr. Richard's children and preserve their rights within the family estate. Victoria's hands began shaking. That's ridiculous. The attorney continued. Evidence shows that less than 24 hours after the memorial service, you removed both beneficiaries from the family residence and attempted to deny them access to estate assets. Silence filled the room. Every executive, every lawyer, every relative was staring at her. Therefore, the attorney said, the inheritance clause has been activated. Victoria jumped to her feet. No! But it was already over. The documents were legal. The evidence was undeniable. Witnesses from the memorial had already provided statements. Security footage showed her ordering us out of the mansion. Even the notices she sent us had become evidence against her. Her own actions had triggered the clause. The attorney closed the folder. Effective immediately, control of the estate transfers to the Richard Family Trust. He then looked at Ethan and me. The trust will be managed equally by both sons. The room erupted into whispers. Several executives smiled. Others nodded in approval. Dad's closest business partner actually laughed out loud. Victoria stood frozen in disbelief. Everything she thought she owned had vanished in a matter of minutes. "This isn't fair," she said quietly. The attorney's response was simple. It was Mr. Richards' final decision.